So today we are going to explore the position of Pakistan in the Middle East, through the economic and political point of view. Waqar, could you please introduce yourself and what do you do for business?
My name is Waqar Rizvi. Hello, everyone. Firstly, I'm a TV anchor and TV host, and I host my own social political show on Indus News, which is Pakistan's first international English language private news channel. It's based in Lahore and Islamabad. We have offices in both places. So my show basically covers a lot of international affairs. I don't just concentrate on South Asia. I concentrate a lot on North American affairs as well, because I grew up in Canada and the UAE. And yeah, pretty much I've lived in Iran before this, so I speak Persian as well, and I'm learning French these days also. So I've been in many places around the world, so I'm able to hopefully discuss quite a wide range of political affairs around the world also.
We're really honored by your existence today, Waqar. Thank you so much for that. So let me start with my first question. How do you evaluate the relationship between Pakistan and Iran currently?
The relationship between Pakistan and Iran has always been very complicated because of the Saudi factor. And obviously, there's always been, I think, a bit of a battle for influence in Pakistan as far as politics go. So Pakistan has always had an interesting relationship with all of its neighbors. So of course, on one side we have India, and we know the issues that Pakistan has with India because of Kashmir. On the other side, we also have issues with Iran because of the border, not the same dispute as with India, but there are issues of security, of terrorism both ways, which both countries blame each other for. The relations right now, I think, are much better than they have been in the past, because I think Pakistan's establishment has made the decision to be as independent as possible, and not to be under the influence of any one specific country. So I think that independent policy making is being a good thing for this country. However, we still very much are influenced by the Saudis. But because of our friendship with the Chinese, we also then are sort of forced to have good relations with the Iranians as well, because the Iranians are also close to the Chinese. So it's a bit of a mix, of course. So it's never a simple question when it comes to Pakistan and its relations with specific countries. There's always a lot of external players that also influence Pakistan and its foreign policies.
How heavy is the Gulf influence in Pakistan?
Very heavy. It's always been about Gulf money. So we have a lot of Pakistanis, like even my family, like I said, I was born in the UAE in Abu Dhabi. So my father worked in ADNOC, which is the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, for many, many years, for more than 30 years. And then after that, he worked elsewhere within Abu Dhabi as well. So a lot of Pakistanis, like my own family, worked and lived in the UAE. I'm just giving that as an example, but of course there's many in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, etc. also. And a lot of that money then they send back to Pakistan, right? So the Pakistani economy benefits a lot from the remittances that these people send back to their country. But on top of that, and what's even more important, is the kind of investment and the bailouts essentially that Saudi Arabia, for example, has given Pakistan whenever Pakistan has had financial issues in the past, when it's had loans that it has to repay to international lenders. The Saudis have come in, or others have come in and have given Pakistan that money then. So that has been a huge help. But because of that help, no one gives you money for free, right? Whenever somebody gives you money, they want something in return for it. So that relationship then has become a bit challenging, because, of course, then that means that Pakistan cannot make its own policies.
So my next question is related to India. In the last skirmish, or let's say attack from India, you decided to release the Indian pilot and not to escalate things. And then the new Indian Prime Minister came. How improved are the relationships with India after that incident?
They haven't improved, no. I think that yes, there has been a decision made that there shouldn't be violence, but then I think that the Pakistani government that right now is in power made the decision very early on that they didn't want to get into violence unless, of course, they had to defend the country, which is what they did last year. Now, the return of the Indian pilot, it was not an easy thing to do. There was a lot of criticism within the country, as you can imagine, when you have somebody who has flown into your country from an enemy state, and you return that pilot then to the enemy. without any consequences, right? There was nothing happened. I mean, we returned him and that was it. We didn't ask for anything in return except that, listen, don't do this again. Let's not fight, because we are both nuclear armed neighbors. So we both have nuclear weapons. And if anything happens, if there's an escalation, then it would not be good for either of our people. That's what Imran Khan, our prime minister, said. Now, after that, of course, there's a bit of a stalemate where, yes, there always are issues when it comes to Kashmir, that region overall, fighting both sides. But I mean, in the sense of what happened last year, nothing that bad has yet happened, and hopefully will not happen again in the future, because I think that, you never know who's going to be in power on either side, and if they will want war or not. So we shouldn't even wish for something like that, because again, two nuclear armed neighbors, you don't want them to go to war.
Okay, with the position and the let's say the procedures in Afghanistan, like it has seen a lot of political turmoil and the American existence, but Pakistan like managed to keep its independence and its sovereign state. How did you do that?
I think when it comes to Afghanistan, you have to remember that Pakistan realized, as much as we may criticize Pakistani policies even towards Afghanistan or anybody else, I think that we have to realize that Pakistan understood that you need to be able to live in this region, right? So whatever your neighbors do, whether you like the government or not, is not the point, because it's not your choice, right? It's not like Pakistan has the right to go into Afghanistan and tell Afghanistan what to do, or to go into Iran and tell Iran what to do. So whoever is in power, Pakistan has to be friendly with them, has to have good relations with them. It can't be surrounded by enemies, right? So India already is perceived as an enemy by Pakistan, so that we can't be surrounded by enemies on the other sides as well, So we need to have good relations with Afghanistan. A lot of people say that, why is Pakistan, or why does Pakistan have relations with the Taliban? Even friendly relations of any sort. But the thing is, what people don't realize also is that they don't give credit then to Pakistan to be able to influence the Taliban even a little bit, to then have this peace process that is right now playing out in Afghanistan. It was through Pakistan's help that this peace process was able to go forward. It's not only Pakistan, of course, but I'm saying that Pakistan played a very important role, and the Americans have spoken about that a number of times. So I think we need to appreciate the things that have happened in that regard. And yes, I think Pakistan's been able to secure itself from a lot of the terrorism now. I mean, the terrorism numbers in the country are very, very, very low compared to what they were a number of years ago. And all of that is credit to our security forces, to our intelligence, to our military.
Okay, with the outreach of Turkey, like, and with its political vision to extend on the Islamic agenda and on the Islamic thinking, how close are Pakistan and Turkey, and how feasible is it for more or wider relationships in the future?
Turkey and Pakistan are very, very close. So we don't only have relations which are military intelligence, we also have very close cultural relations. So we just had that, that huge Turkish drama, Ertugrul, and it was, aired in Pakistan as well. It was dubbed into Urdu. And that's just a small example of Turkish influence here. Turkey has stood up for Pakistan when it comes to the issue of Kashmir as well, which is very important to Pakistan. In fact, many of the Gulf countries did not stand with Pakistan when it came to the issue of Kashmir. So I think Pakistan has realized that on such issues which are very important to Pakistan, it's been very careful then to see who exactly is standing with it and who is not. So I think Turkey has played it smart when it comes to its relations with Pakistan in that regard.
So how do you manage your relationships with the wider Islamic world? Like mainly you are focused, or you are influenced by the close by neighbors. What about the faraway neighbors?
I think we have good relations with, talking about specifically Muslim countries, I think we can say we have good relations. We have good relations with Malaysia, for example. When Mahathir Mohamad was still the prime minister there, he spoke again in support of Kashmir, in support of Pakistan's stance when it comes to Kashmir. Pakistan has good relations with others as well. Pakistan's also, even beyond the Muslim world, is also trying to have good relations as well in African countries, both Muslim and otherwise. So I think that the new Pakistani government, again, and the establishment now is realizing that we cannot, as you said, just look at our neighbors. We also need to look beyond that. So even when it comes to the relationship with the United States, or even other countries like Canada, or countries which you would not think that Pakistan would normally concentrate on, but we are now concentrating on those relationships as well.
With the election of Biden and the return of the Democrats into power in the USA, how does that affect Pakistan?
It depends how Biden acts towards India. That's the biggest thing for Pakistan, right? Because we know Kamala Harris is vice president, has Indian roots as well. So we'll have to wait and see how she also acts and what kind of policies the Biden administration will have towards Kashmir. That's always, as I said, a huge issue for Pakistanis. Uh, I personally don't think it will be a huge difference, but we'll have to wait and see what the kind of policies they have towards, especially the issue of Kashmir will be. But then even beyond that, there will also then be the issue of Palestine and Israel, right? So will Biden also force more Gulf countries to accept Israel? And if so, then the pressure will increase on Pakistan, right? Because we already know that the Pakistani Prime Minister has said that there's a lot of pressure on Pakistan right now to also normalize ties with Israel. If more Gulf countries start normalizing ties with Israel, that would mean that more pressure will come on Pakistan also. And will Pakistan be able to withstand that pressure? That will make a huge difference because, of course, Pakistan has always said, we're not going to normalize ties with Israel until the issue of Palestine is resolved in a fashion which is just and acceptable to the Palestinian people. A lot of people in Pakistan would also argue that the issue of Palestine and the issue of Kashmir are connected. And so if we ignore the issue of Palestine and Pakistan, according to some people, then that would mean that we're also then in some way saying that, okay, the issue of Kashmir, we don't care about it as much, or that we do not see the connection. We do not talk about occupation in the same way. I mean, it would create problems for us to argue then about the occupation of Kashmir on the Indian side. So it would complicate matters for us in many regards, according to, again, some experts here.
How do you see the effect of Biden's election being the president on the Middle East in general?
That's an interesting question, because I think that a lot of things that Donald Trump has done when it comes to the Middle East have been things that I think other US presidents have wanted to do, but they have not had the courage to do. So, Donald Trump has from day one said he's very pro-Israel. Joe Biden is also very, very pro-Israel. All of his statements have always been very pro-Israel. But usually Democrats, or I shouldn't say Democrats, but I should say all previous US presidents have always been very careful about how they have dealt with the Middle East. Donald Trump has been a very different kind of president, as we know. He doesn't have the same rules for himself as other US presidents. So we'll have to wait and see, to be honest. It's very hard to say. I mean, because the biggest thing for Joe Biden right now in the Middle East will also be Iran. Will he rejoin the Iran nuclear deal? Does he even have that option of joining the Iran nuclear deal after the Fakhrizadeh assassination in Iran? Is it even possible? Do the Iranians even want the deal anymore? Because that will make a huge, huge impact on the region. And then, of course, there's the issue of Palestine, as I said. But that's a huge issue to deal with for the Biden administration. And thirdly, then there's Syria, there's Iraq. There's a long list of issues that we can probably talk about. Even Libya in North Africa is a huge issue for the Middle Eastern countries also. So, there's a number of issues, but I think Iran number one and then Palestine number two would be the main issues that Biden will have to deal with.
Where do you see the positives or the opportunities in Biden's election?
I think the positives are that he will be less racist, I guess, is the question, is the word to use. But I don't think that means that necessarily his policies will be very different. I just think that his policies will be more hidden. And that's how it's always been with previous US presidents, right? So I think as much as we all criticize Donald Trump for, saying many things very directly, that doesn't mean that not everybody else is thinking it, or that the other US presidents did not also think the exact same thing. It just means that they were smarter about trying to hide what they were really thinking when they were making their policies. So I think the opportunity, yes, is that he has been smarter when it comes to Muslims, for example. He has spoken to a lot of Muslim Americans during his candidacy before he became president-elect. Even now, there's talk about some Muslim Americans possibly becoming part of his cabinet or his team. All that needs to be confirmed, of course, once January 20th comes. But for the rest of the world, I think, yes, maybe he will remove the Muslim ban. So, there's a number of countries, citizens who are currently banned from entering the United States on certain visas. Maybe that will end. But even that, we'll have to wait and see. But just ending visas is not the same thing as ending military interventions or intervention overall in the Middle East or Muslim countries. Those are two very different things. So we'll have to wait and see exactly how that works out, because I think many of the things Donald Trump has done will be very hard to walk back.
It has been amazing talking to you, Waqar. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much, Nour. I really appreciate it.